Hi, and welcome to Infographics from Cavemen to the Classroom. I'm Cindy Larson, and I am the French teacher at Grand Forks Central. Today we're going to just learn about infographics, kind of show some examples, and really try to figure out ways that they can be used in our classrooms to engage students. So an infographic is really just a combination of text and pictures, and was developed to attract attention to in the publishing industry to an article, nowadays in the advertising industry to get people to go to different websites, and to really it's just an easy, simple way to get people's attention, but also convey a message at the same time. So on your own, if you want to visit this infographic at your own speed and read through, this is a live link, or you see the bit.ly link there as well. But I'm going to take you out to 13 reasons why our brains crave infographics. So this is a very elaborate infographic, but I'll just kind of scroll through so you can see it. And obviously you can go through this, go out on to the link and go through it at your own pace. But just to give you a really good visual of what an infographic or an example of an infographic would be. And it also had some really good facts in there. The amount of information kids are bombarded with on a daily basis has increased by 5 times. The idea that what you see and do, you remember more than what you just hear or read. So it's just kind of a lot of information, but you can see that it was conveyed bright colors, and this one it had animation, which is a little beyond what I could create, but it had the bright colors, it stood out, it was separated, everything was kind of just the basic information that we needed or that they needed to get across to us. So that's really all an infographic is. So what we're going to, maybe when you're going through it and reading it on your own, you can kind of think like, what do you remember? What stood out? What surprised you the most? Maybe there was a fact or something. So these are some questions that we went over during our session. And really kind of the fact that how much information is going towards kids these days, or how much we're being bombarded through media, through, kids, they've got their devices that they're attached to. So that's kind of one thing that stood out, the amount of information that has increased. And also kind of that whole, you got to remember, they're very visual learners. A lot of people in this world are visual learners. So the seeing and doing, remembering more things when you see and do things. So that was another thing that kind of stood out to our groups as we were having conversation about that 13 reasons why our brains crave infographic. But today we're going to talk about 10 ways to use infographics in the classroom. So all of these have links, so I'll just show you the first step. All of these have links out to different examples. So if you go to this link, the bit.ly link to the Cavemen 2, you will be able to link out and see some different examples. But basically the first way you can use an infographic in the classroom to engage students is to supplement the text. Maybe you're going to try to activate prior knowledge, remind them what do you already know or what should you already know. There are so many, depending on your subject matter, there are a lot of infographics already created online. I suggest go out and use some that are already created. It will be easier for you, and you can use it kind of as, a way to either supplement your book, or maybe it's something that you're trying to pre-teach, or you needed to add a little bit of extra information to what was provided in your text. So it's just another way that a way you can supplement. Kids are going to be interested in it. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that gets printed off for them. A lot of these are access to them online. You can see the link online. Explaining a process. There are so many different ways that this one could be used in my classroom as a French teacher, but think of science, think of, it could be as simple as sort of maybe doing a lab report, but in an infographic form. Making comparisons. Making comparisons is huge. This is the first one one of the infographics I plan to have my students create this year, and they're going to be comparing our culture here in the United States and even specifically North Dakota versus culture in a French-speaking country. It could be, I have listed here compare two characters or historical figures or compare a book with a movie. So it's kind of limitless in your options. You just have to think, how could this relate to my classroom? And you'll also be able to find a lot of these comparison infographics already created out there. Timelines. Timelines are huge for, if you're studying history. Here's a timeline, a use of an infographic that has nothing to do with history, but it is something that I am personally using for my French studies travel class. So this is kind of their, I guess maybe not necessarily a timeline, but more of an itinerary of what needs to get done until December. So that's just a use of that timeline setup. Create game boards. A lot of infographics and even the timeline ones look like a game board, so why not create a game board off of it, or have your students create a game board, or maybe you can find one that's already created for you. Retell a story. We can add any images we want into an infographic, and so depending on the program you're using. So maybe you're trying to retell a story. Maybe kids have acted something out and you've taken some still shots of them, or they've done it, or they're going to input, images that represent a book and do their book report through an infographic. A character or biography of a historical figure, or maybe a character in a book, is another way that you can use an infographic. Have students produce, or maybe you're going to compare two different characters. That kind of goes up to the compare and contrast one. Maybe you'll have students create an individual character infographic, and then we can, it'd be easy to have those two put up next to each other and compare the two infographics. Present an idea or a topic. I think of a lot of students. A lot of students produce posters and things like that for our classes. This would be a very easy way to have a digital product that kind of does the same thing as a poster. So, whatever your topic may be, they can create an infographic. You can use it in your class next year because you've got that link to that infographic, or you can save it on your computer. So you've got the item with, the information without having to store that poster in the cupboard year after year. Revise or add info. This one I thought would be very is an interesting idea. If it's an infographic that you've created, you maybe have left some pieces out. Or maybe it's an infographic that you've already found developed online and you're going to use it in your class, but you want to add some things to it. So really giving students, partial information and then allowing them to research and add on, or maybe you're really trying to direct them to discover something new. So that's a way you can use an infographic. And the last one is to label an image or a diagram. And this is actually going to be my first one of the year. I'm going to have some of my students labeling characters or people, because we're going to have to learn about the body a little bit. So labeling, you can insert a picture and have students label different parts of it, whether it be some kind of scientific thing or, something, a historical place or document or person. So it's just kind of that one could go, you could use it in a lot of different ways. Create an infographic. I personally use Pictochart. That's actually what I created this presentation on. It is an infographic, but when we're online, we have the option of choosing to use it as a presentation. So each individual section that you saw as a slide is actually just a different section on my infographic when I created it. Infogram really, if you have a lot of statistics and numbers, that's kind of what Infogram is geared towards. And then I have not used or really looked at the other two. PictoChart has free, all of these have a free option. And in PictoChart, you actually have a free option. You can log in and sign up with your Google information, so it's really easy, a one-click sign in. And then they give you some free templates to use. So if we go to, here we're getting just to PictoChart. I'm already logged in. But if I wanted to choose, and so once you get logged in, this is kind of what your home screen looks like. And right now I have it as Infographic. So here are the free templates that you can use. And if you think of them, once you open them up, you'll see you can use totally create by something on your own, or you can, if you're doing a compare and contrast, maybe you're going to click on this coffee versus tea, and really you can edit and insert anything or take out anything you see, or change the colors or change the backgrounds. You have a lot of variety, there's a lot of variety that you can do with it. If you want to go ahead and get the Pro, which they offer to teachers a $15 discount or a $15 subscription for the year. So it's not too expensive, but here you can see the template that I used to do my timeline. These are, here's your option for templates if you choose to get a paid subscription. The nice thing about a paid subscription too is that you can download a PDF, so it gives you a really nice way to print what you created. If you do not want to get a subscription, when you create, so I'll just choose this one to start, Geeks on a Beach. Let's just click create. Whoa, let it load here. When you are ready, this is my infographic. I've changed my font how I want. I have my backgrounds. I have all the information I need in there. When you go to download it, it'll give you only two options. It'll give you the PNG or the JPEG option. And I would say, a way to kind of work around not having a PDF of it, save a JPEG of it, and then you can just insert that JPEG into a document on Google Docs, like a Google document or a Word document, and you'd be able to print it that way. Just keep in mind what kind of color backgrounds you're going to be doing so that it's not super dark or too light. And if you notice right here, this little dotted line is the end of a page of paper, a standard page letter size paper. So you can kind of gear your infographic that way. So that's just a little bit about infographics and a little bit about PictoChart. Like I said, there are a lot of different ones. I just started using PictoChart, so it's what I'm familiar with. But there are a lot of different ways to create, and there are so many infographics already created. So go out there, find an awesome infographic, double check them, make sure it's correct and the information fits what you're using or want to use it for in your classroom, and try to bring activities in. We are thinking to practice for smarter balance testing, make it one of those sources. So instead of reading 3 different texts, maybe they're going to read an infographic and a text and something else, and then they have to pull out information from it. Maybe you're going to have kids read an article and then create an infographic about that article. Really getting kids, if you're thinking to read and then they're going to have to come up with, summarize the details of what they read. So there's just a lot of different variety or different ways that you can use them in your classroom. And they're fun, they're bright, they're interesting, and it's just kind of a cool way to get information across to kids that I think they're really going to like because of the colors and the It's not just a huge, big page of text.